Welcome back to another episode of Flight Deck. Today we are joined by Jeff, and he will be walking us through his assistant that he built to help make his work a bit easier. Let's dive right in, and could you explain a little bit about the assistant and the basics of what it is?
So what you're looking at is what I've built here. And I suppose we should probably go into obviously what it is and why we're even talking about this in the first place. So uh, the the initial issue was that I was working on a customer related project and we were doing a migration to FortiGate. And through my research, finding that FortiGate offers tools, but they charge an exorbitant fee to the tune of like $4,000. So that is a limiting factor to some customers who might not want or have that ability to pay that $4,000. So my question to myself was then, can I build something that can basically take a configuration from like a Palo Alto or a Cisco ASA, which we were working with Cisco at the time, and convert that over to a FortiManager. And that's how this started. And then from there, I got deeper and deeper and deeper into how can I make my assistant work better for me, where it isn't necessarily giving me the answers, it's more of me doing brain dumps and it helping carry some of that load where I can be more efficient and do things much quicker than you otherwise would be able to do.
What were when you were making this application assistant, what technical hurdles did you have to overcome while doing it?
Um, so there's a couple. One is obviously the code itself. Now, I don't have a background in an educational background in programming. A lot of my stuff is self-taught. So it's, how do I want to build this out in a programming language, which I landed on Python and React, and moving forward, some HTML. That was the first hurdle. And then the second one is the biggest one, and it is the parsing logic or the parsing engine required to do Palo Alto, Cisco, Juniper, ASA, all of these. So, if we take a kind of a side by side look of our, where are we at? Okay, here we go. So if I take a look at this configuration here, this is a sanitized Cisco ASA configuration. And if I open up this is a Palo Alto. You can already see that they look different, just the formatting structure and how things get passed. So the issue is the parsing engine and how can I take that Palo Alto configuration, put it into code where the code can parse each line of that configuration and do a translation to something like a FortiGate or an ASA. Um, there's nesting logic involved. There are um, a lot of different variables that need to be considered. Um, and what's in my current config, I could get another one tomorrow that is twice the size and has twice as much going on. And then the question is my parsing logic on point to handle additional those additional configuration items? So it really is a trial by error um, approach for me. So that is the biggest hurdle from the configuration standpoint.
Yeah. So who would you say this tool targets?
Uh, it hits a couple of groups. It could be, something like an overworked engineer. It could be a junior engineer that is still getting up to speed that might not know the intricacies of maybe FortiGate or Palo, maybe more familiar with Cisco, and they're now looking down. the barrel of, well, I've got to spin up some palos that we're going to, or some FortiGates, and there's a learning curve there. So how can we streamline some of that without the $4,000 price tag associated with something like a Forti manager or Forti converter? And it could be people that just want to be more efficient and do more with less time.
What would be different about this assistant versus other ones that exist out there other than maybe just that price tag?
Historically, you have vendor specific. So let's say you've got some sort of tool that a vendor offers. It's typically curtailed or designed for their products, meaning you want to go to their products, um, which is great, but then you could be looking at, I need 4 different tools because I have 4 different vendors in the mix here. And each one of those might charge a fee. And it really locks me into that platform a little bit, where my approach is, how can I make this more like a Swiss Army knife where it is vendor agnostic and we have a parsing engine or a conversion engine that can handle each one of these things, where it's kind of a one-stop shop.
So then what is the ultimate goal for this project?
The
If
ultimate
there
goal is, there's quite a few ultimate goals, and it almost changes um, week by week. Where this started out as a simple conversion tool, to where I can now do something like, let's do, all right, so I've got a configuration here from an ASA. I've just uploaded it to my tool. I'm going to analyze it by using my analyze button here. Here's our configuration, and I've analyzed it. And what that does is it gives me clear output on the interfaces, system information, our security rules, static routes, where I can see that just by clicking a button. I don't need to go into a GUI. I don't need to go into the configuration and start just going line by line. It just spits it out for me. Um, some details there, gives me some interface details, potential issues, some recommendations that, again, there's a little bit of a preset logic in there where it's looking for certain things. And if it sees those as present, then a recommendation gets triggered, a predefined recommendation, like you don't have a description on this interface that is in a no shut state. You should probably get a description to help you better identify what that interface is for. And then we use labs heavily here, or I do at least, where I have a section for launch a lab, where historically we've got to go through 20 different hoops to get into our lab environment. Um, I just want to be able to click buttons and get in there quick. So like if I want to get into my Cisco switch here, all I have to do is click Cisco switch. And what it'll ask me is, do you want to go into a GUI or do you want to go in through SSH? And if I click GUI, it'll try to launch the interface GUI for that switch. And if I want to go in through SSH, I can do that. I intentionally have the host blank for now, but if I try to connect, it won't. But I can just get right into it from here, which saves me more time. Same with Windows servers and things like that. So I can get into my lab environment here and start labbing things out if I'm on a call or if we're trying to troubleshoot something quickly. So again, one-stop shop assistant for a lot of different things. I
Yeah.
have my ability to take notes over here in the right hand pane. These get saved on exit. So when I relaunch my assistant, they're there. But these kind of like a running list of things I'm working on, like I need to investigate the parsing logic for the Palo Alto. There's a lot of nesting that happens in that configuration, which is causing some issues. So these are notes to myself on expanding and improving on the assistant, as well as some future ideas that I've started working on. So we deal with Cisco ICE here. One of the things that I'm looking to build out is a AAA authentication or radius configuration builder where, yes, you can go into ICE and do all of that, but is there a way that we can maybe make that a little bit easier where it's kind of self-guided GUI that plug in this IP? Do you want radius? Do you want AAA? Like, what are you trying to do here? And then at the very end, it just spits out that configuration for you. Or maybe something more visual where we want to parse out static routes and create a concise visualization for the traffic flow on maybe a switch or a router. And then I've got some decompiling of additional Cisco related items that I've got written on my whiteboard here in my office. So leave myself breadcrumbs and notes. Yeah, a lot of things happening here.
um, so what, um, how did you build this tool out? What platforms did you use to build this tool?
Primarily, Visual Studio Code is where the code base gets altered. So if I open that here, this is Visual Studio Code. It is a free piece of software from the internet that you can use to do your programming. There are new tools out there which are actually really exciting. We start talking about leveraging current technology. Cursor.io is essentially Visual Studio Code with AI integration. It uses Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is extremely good for coding. It's got some Chat GPT and OpenAI integrations as well, where you can ask it questions, you can have it examine code base, make suggestions, or if you're having trouble, you can ask it a question and it'll help you. That's something that I just started playing around with recently. Because again, I'm not a programmer. I'm just a normal individual trying to do some cool stuff. So leveraging tools like that are extremely helpful. Um, and then you have your AI platforms out there like Claude, ChatGPT, OpenAI. Pick your flavor. Some are good at programming. Some are really awful at programming. Like you wouldn't want to use Gemini for it. That's not what Gemini is built for. So those are a few tools that I've used, as well as just kind of talking with others and listening to people's experiences and what they're working on. Like how can we make that a more pleasant experience, or how can we eliminate some of these hurdles that we've historically faced? So observations are extremely important on that front.
Yeah. Are there any features in this assistant that we didn't cover that you think would be useful to share?
We've got oh, I know why, because I turned that off. Working on a firewall analyzer and a VPN analyzer where I don't think I actually have a configuration I can show you here. But basically, I would post a snippet of a VPN configuration, and it would analyze that configuration and give me, like, if we're talking FortiGate, right? It would give me the phase one, phase two tunnel information and that configuration where I can look at that quickly if we're having maybe like an IPsec issue, where it's like, oh yeah, you know, your your WAN IP is wrong, or there's an issue with uh, maybe your secret or the type of encryption you're using, where I could maybe analyze that. Firewall analyzer is more broad. I'm not sure where I'm heading with that just yet. I've just identified that that is something that I would like to potentially explore. So that feature's turned off for now because I just haven't gotten around to that. And then again, I've got SSH function here where if the tool I'm using is, let's say on a network that can reach a switch or a router, firewall, whatever server, I can SSH to that device without having to open up PuTTY. And then I can do exports as well from this tool. So let's say I'm in here and we're working through an issue and I find that set a configuration, find that our interface IP for on this config is wrong. It should have been .28.1 and instead it was 22. I can make that change here, save it, do the export, and then send it to whoever without having to open up like Notepad or anything like that. Where just again, reducing the amount of clicks and time I have to spend doing certain things.